And we're pleased to welcome back to Telile 24/7 the Progressive Conservative candidate for the riding of Richmond. He is Trevor Boudreau. Trevor, thank you for joining me on Telile 24/7 today.
Thank you, Adam. I think it's almost been a little under a year since the last time we had a good chat like this, isn't it?
Yes, that's true enough. And I mean, that was shortly after you got the nomination for the PCs here in Richmond County. I know you and your leader, Tim Houston, did quite a bit of touring in different parts of the county. We got to catch up on the marina deck over in St. Peter's. And fast forward a year now, you've been hard at it. How do you feel that this campaign is going? We're 8 days out. We're getting to the finish line. But how do you feel that this campaign's gone for you this summer?
I've been really pleased, and I must say I've been really happy with the graciousness of the people letting us come to their doors and chat with them. So really want to thank the residents of Richmond for having us. I would say the other candidates would say the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we're coming out of the third wave of COVID-19, and we're keeping our eyes on everything. There could be a fourth wave, you never know. But do you feel like people were ready to welcome you as a candidate, but welcome the other candidates and have the kind of doorstep discussions that they might not necessarily have been having during the rest of the pandemic, particularly during the spring lockdown? Do you get that sense of relief and get the sense that people want to talk about the issues right now?
I started door knocking probably in February. So after the kind of second wave happened, I started knocking on doors, and certainly I'm still following the same procedures that I was there. I'm wearing a mask at every door. I'm trying to keep social distance. People were craving conversation then. And the issues were hitting me right off the get-go in February. And then when the third wave hit, obviously I pulled back. I wasn't door knocking. It probably, I say it slowed me down a little bit, but maybe there would have been an election earlier. Who knows? Because my hope was to hit every door in Richmond, similar to how I did my first municipal run in Port Hawkesbury. I hit just about every door to make sure I was informed on the issues, right? I can pretend to know what all the issues are, and platforms are kind of shaped that way, that we say we know the issues, but the reality is the issues are at the and if you're not getting to the residents and you're not getting to talk to business owners, maybe you frame it a little bit differently and you think the issues are somewhat different than what they really are.
Mm-hmm.
People have been great since the campaign started, since the writ was dropped. I do feel there's a bit more engagement. I'm getting, not necessarily questions, but really good questions, and it's giving me a good base to keep track of about what the issues are. So, like I said, if I become MLA, I'm gonna hit the door, going to hit the pavement running. So.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about some of those issues. And this is not entirely something that was new to you. I mean, you were a town councillor in Port Hawkesbury for 7.5 years, so you got to know a lot of what local people are facing. Can you give me a sense, though, what people are talking about at this moment, or even what they were talking about when you started knocking on doors in February? What are some of the issues that are framing this campaign for you in Richmond?
Healthcare has been the number one issue at the door. And I'm using healthcare in a general sense, right? So there are a lot of healthcare issues, right? We can talk about doctor shortages. We can talk about ambulance and critical code that's been going on. We can talk about long-term care beds. We can talk about mental health issues. All of these are at the door, and they're very real, along with a lot of the social determinants of health. So we can talk a bit more, affordable housing and housing in general has crept up a little bit more, and for good reason, right? COVID has really shone a light on areas that we have struggled as a province and maybe as a country, and so long-term care being one of them, but affordable housing and housing in general has crept up. I'll tell you, the more rural I get, and I've tried to hit every single rural door, and by rural, I mean, those small areas in Framboise and Sterling and Lockwood. Sure. And I'll tell you, access to essential services like internet and cell coverage are crucial. And if we want to attract people to our region and we want to grow our population, we need to have those essential services. And so those were there in the beginning. When I started knocking on doors in February, and they're loud and clear right now as well.
Well, let me pick up on one of those issues that you mentioned, and that being healthcare, partly because your leader, Tim Houston, has made this a centerpiece of his campaign. Of course, there's an aggressive strategy that the Progressive Conservative Party has put out to deal with healthcare. even early in the campaign, one interviewer asked each of the three leaders, what is your number one priority? If you could only do one thing if you're elected premier, what would that be? And Tim Houston didn't waste a moment. He said, fix healthcare. Now, you've been involved in physician recruitment with the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health Committee. So you know coming into this that it's not simply a matter of flicking a switch and all of a sudden everybody has a doctor, long-term care is taken care of. But what do you feel about your experience at that level in terms of physician recruitment lines up well with what you're seeing from Mr. Houston and the PC party in terms of healthcare priorities locally and provincially?
It was a big priority in 2019. We recognized kind of the challenges we were facing. And I was kind of volunteered to actually go to the Royal Society of Physicians conference that was being held in Halifax to attract doctors. So my wife, Sarah, who's a pharmacist, and I were the representatives for the Strait area. We went to this conference and it was an eye-opener. There were 40 other booths from across Canada, all rural areas, and they were all struggling to attract doctors too. And they had been at it for a number of years, and we didn't know what we didn't know. And so I learned a lot there. And fast forward a couple of months later, then we start meeting some of our colleagues in Richmond County and at the Dr. Kingston Memorial Health Center to really start talking about it as a region. And because really doctors, there's no borders with doctors. It's not like you have a doctor in Port Hawkesbury and they're not supporting people in Richmond. And so this collaborative approach of Cape Breton South Recruiting from Health kind of started there. And right off the go, we talked about not just recruitment, we talked a bit about, the other healthcare providers that could support health in our community. And what are some ways we can change how we do healthcare in rural Nova Scotia. But really, crisis happened because we were short doctors and we were going to be losing another doctor. And so that became kind of the main focus for our region, and for our community. Having Maggie McDonald as a navigator, that probably solved a lot of problems for us. We were all at it at the side of our desk because we were all working and we were all volunteers. And having Maggie has really helped us shape our processes better, our policies better, and making sure that we're informed. This really aligns with what Tim Houston and the PC party are saying, is that, attracting and retaining healthcare practitioners and physicians especially, right? We're talking about almost 70,000, maybe it's over 70,000 people without a doctor right now. And our plan talks about recruitment and attraction of doctors. It talks about making sure we pay them well. So what we will know is that rural family physicians aren't paid to the same level as specialists, or even rural family physicians in other provinces. And so when you're trying to attract someone who may have $200,000 or $300,000 in debt, making sure they have income that they can pay off their debt while starting a family and while, building a practice, that's important. And so that's one component. But, it's really about making sure our healthcare family is valued, right? So we have attracted a couple of doctors here, and one of our missions is to make sure we retain. And so how do we take care of the doctors who are here and the nurses who are here? And you'll probably see some promotion about some barbecues coming up to support healthcare workers from Cape Breton South Recruiting from Health. And that's, that's a big part of what we're doing is that. And Tim Houston and I had that conversation early on when him and I were meeting about me becoming a potential candidate. It's, healthcare was on top of my mind. It resonated really well, and that's kind of how we formed this alliance, and how I know that Tim is the right person. Our vision of healthcare aligns very well, and we'll see where this plays out. But I think we have the right people, we have the right mix of healthcare providers as candidates. We have a team that wants to put healthcare first, and we're all on board. We're ready to go.
You spoke about the team effort, Trevor, and I want to concentrate on that for a little bit based on your experience with Port Hawkesbury Town Council, not just with the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health Committee, but you and I both know that over your time in your 2 terms as a town councillor, some difficult decisions had to be made, some even more difficult than others. I've spoken to other town councillors about sleepless nights and difficulties like this. So can you give me a sense on what some of the more valuable lessons that you've learned from these times as a town councillor have been that you think would work well for you, not just as an MLA, but working in either a party caucus or a government caucus. How do you feel that the give and take of municipal government may have prepared you for provincial government?
So it's about building relationships with people. It's about collaborating. It's about understanding the issues from another perspective. I think, when I went into municipal politics, I have my opinions and I have my thoughts on how everything should roll. But what I learned a lot was it's really important to make sure you understand how everybody else is taking an issue or how everybody else is feeling about something, because then you get a better perspective of making informed choices, right? When you're making decisions, whether it's on budget or policy or, you really have to understand why you're making the decisions you're making and how it impacts people. And so, just working with municipal staff and municipal council and you get a lot of how the works, right? And then you're having to collaborate with your neighbors, neighboring municipalities. You're having to collaborate with different levels of government and staff at different levels of government. And you're not always going to agree on the first time, the second time, the third time. And sometimes it takes that collaborative effort and those disagreements to come to the best solution. And so how you deal with a team, right? Regardless of party or no party, you're going to have to be working with as a team, right? The decisions that you make aren't one person decisions, and they shouldn't be. You're a team with your constituency, with the residents, the businesses. And if you can't work as a team with people, you're really going to struggle being a successful MLA. Right? So my approach has always been about collaboration. It's always been about the people and how it impacts people. And I'm going to continue that in my role if I'm elected MLA.
Last question to you, Trevor, and I've been asking this to all the candidates here in Richmond. Is there a single ballot question that defines this election either for Richmond or for Nova Scotia? Is there one or two things that people might look at and say, this is the issue on which I will base my decision, and this is why I've chosen this particular candidate to be my MLA? Do you get the sense that there is one or even one or two ballot questions this time around?
To me, to a number of my colleagues, this is kind of like a referendum on healthcare. If you feel that Nova Scotia is very successful with healthcare and with long-term care and with mental health and affordable housing, that I think for rural Nova Scotia, I think we're struggling. We find that, a lot of decisions are being made in Halifax. The change to one health authority has really impacted our ability to make decisions here. And the further away you make decisions about healthcare in an area, the less informed it is. And so that's the ballot question. But I also, I will say, what has come up at the door a lot, because when you're running for a party, there are people who vote for the party no matter what, and then there are people who are really coming at the door and they're saying we're really looking at the person. I think there's a little bit of a shift here in terms of how people are voting. I think people are saying, you know what, we want to look at all the candidates, we want to understand their skill set, we want to know what their experiences are about, because we want to be able to trust them, we want to be able to know that they care. And we want to be able to know that they're up for the job. So if I was to pick number two that I'm hearing, it's about making sure they pick the right candidate.
You sound very optimistic. We're 8 days out from the election. How are you feeling as we wrap this up and as you get ready for the final day of voting on August 17th?
I can tell you, when you run municipally, and when I ran municipally, I tried to do it all on my own. I had some building signs and I had some, but I knocked on every door on my own. You couldn't do that without a team here. And I'll tell you, this has been quite the experience. We're energized, we're positive. You'll have a day where you're exhausted at the end of the day, and then you're up at 5:30 ready to go in the morning. And it's because you have that motivating factor of all this support and all this momentum that you feel. And whatever the results, I've left it all on the table, and I want no regrets. And so if at the end of the day I'm not successful, I just hope that whoever is elected is successful, because our Strait area will be much better off with a successful MLA here in Richmond and a successful MLA in Inverness and and the other parts of the area, right? So to me, I think I'm excited. Democracy is at work, and everybody gets a chance to vote. And of course, I hope for me, but at the end of the day, I really just hope they vote. And this has been fun. If you don't enjoy knocking on doors and visiting people and having these conversations, I'm not sure this is the right job for you. And this is right in my element, and I feel like I'm at home, and people have been welcoming me to their door, and that's regardless of who they're going to vote, they've been so good, and I'm leaving with a great, in the last 8 days, I'm hoping it keeps going the same way, and I'm going to leave with a very positive attitude, regardless of the outcome.
Well, on that positive note, we've been happy to have you in our element here on Telile 24/7 today, and we wish you well through the rest of the campaign. Trevor Boudreau, thank you for joining us here on Telile 24/7.
Thank you so much, Adam, and thank you for everything you do for keeping people informed in our area. I think local news and local local media is so important, and so this is right up my alley. I'm very grateful for what you do and what Telile does to make sure that people can hear what the issues are locally.
Well, I thank you, and Telile Community Television thanks you as well, Trevor. We appreciate it very much. Trevor Boudreau is the PC candidate for Richmond. We've been speaking to him from his home via Zoom today.